Hello and welcome everyone to episode 130 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm, of course, Brandon Bovia, letterer of manga like Dragon Ball Super, Kaiju number 8, and I kind of can't believe, 130 is not really like a milestone, but every time I hear that, it's just like the number just gets bigger.
The number keeps getting bigger, that's for sure. And yeah, we're a little over halfway, so we're probably going to be close to 300 by the time this is over.
Yeah, probably. And I mean, God, we're approaching, and in terms of milestones, we're almost at chapter 600.
Yeah, it's wrapping up quick, and that's the thing is this definitely by the end, the set of chapters is sort of preparing you for the next bit. It's wrapping up Luffy and sort of, I guess, finding that strength, seeing kind of what makes him tick, what made Ace tick in a way. It
really is sort of, there's a lot of really good, juicy, kind of character bits in here. Stuff that's not explicitly said, but it's kind of okay, This explains a lot about kind of our characters here.
Yeah, it's good character development for Luffy, who I think we've argued that he's been kind of static. I mean, just a good guy.
Yeah, which is his appeal, in my personal opinion. But it is nice that God, when you think about it, almost 600 chapters, and we're finally kind of getting the at least part of what makes Luffy as a character tick. And I always love that. Something I appreciate about One Piece's storytelling is, I think we've discussed before about how Oda doesn't show Luffy's inner monologue. He doesn't inner monologue ever. So he really is a character defined by his actions. And I think we're kind of seeing, kind of where that all started. And not just for Luffy, but, Ace and a bunch of other characters too.
Yeah, for sure. But let's get to it. Chapter 586, City of Stench. And God, I love these pairings. Also, it seems like Hina's kind of a mean drunk.
Yeah. I like her outfit, though. She looks like she's, ready to go out on the town.
Yeah, it's a fun outfit. Honestly, it's you could see these two dating.
You could. Yeah, no, I ship it. They're cute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tashigi. I didn't.
I don't ship Tashigi and Smoker at all.
It's more of a boss kind of relationship.
Very much so. But we begin the chapter itself with Blue Jam talking to Ace and Luffy, basically being like, hey, you have to be born of a noble blood to be an aristocrat, and they're born under the star of good fortune. If I could switch places with Sabo, I certainly would. So he absolutely despises the two of you. He that's how all nobles are. And immediately Ace and Luffy are like, no, Sabo isn't like that.
What I like about this set, we'll see more in the next couple of chapters, but it's kind of both-sided, right? Obviously the nobles probably don't think too very highly of pirates and the people who live in Gray Terminal, but also you got Blue Jam here who's just I wish I'd been born an aristocrat, but they hate us.
Yeah, you can easily see the class divide. It's I wish I could live like that, but. But then there's all right, well, we got to settle this matter. So I got a job for you guys to do to help because I'm shorthanded. So just deliver these packages to these spots. And it's
Yeah. But I mean, I guess they kind of go along with it. Well, we can't worry about Sabo. So we just kind of, we got to do what we can do for now.
Yeah. Sabo will be okay. He's strong. He'll come back to us eventually. And then we check in on Sabo and we could just see,
this is the other side of it.
Yeah, just how friggin' rotten his father is. Just trying to force Sabo to claim that it was Ace and Luffy that forced him to go along with all this, and he's just absolutely refusing, which good to see from Sabo, but he's also threatening, I'll hurt them if you don't say this. And even despite all that, it's hey, you lied to me the first time, so no. And he gets smacked for it while his dad bribes the officer.
God, and the idea of just they're oh, this will affect the reputation of your family. You won't be able to enter Highland and stuff like that. I like that we're kind of, again, we're from both sides, we're seeing how much they like these kids believe in each other as brothers. Like, you know, like they would never do this, they would never do that. So I like that from both angles. They're kind of like having their relationship tested, but like they truly believe in one another.
Yeah, and we also get a drive the point home about the family you choose, because Sabo gets home. Turns out his parents adopted another kid who happened to be another noble. And it's also just the overriding thing is like, you stink. You're disinfecting the yard, then go get in the bath. And like, oh, what's that horrible smell? And just, it's like, why do they want him here? But it's like, they don't love him. It's just about what he can do for them. And that's why they got the noble family, the kid from the noble family. I don't know what the special circumstances are, but it's interesting that his parents gave up on raising him. I was like, what's that all about?
Oh, and crucially, this little kid's name here is Stelly. he just has the most punchable face imaginable.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah, you know, talking to Sabo, he's like, "I heard you're stupid." Your father and mother have been saying that behind your back. But crucially, he lets it slip that tomorrow night they're gonna burn all of the trash at Trash Mountain.
Yeah, Sabo's just like, wait, what are you talking about? They're going to set fire to the grain terminal? I was like, yeah, you wouldn't know, you weren't here, but it was decided a month ago. So apparently an inspection team of the world government is making its rounds in the East Blue, and they're going to arrive in 3 days. So the celestial dragons are on that ship. They definitely want to try to curry their favor by burning the nation's trash. And Sabo's just immediately like, there's people living in there. Didn't you hear me? They're going to burn the country's trash. And it's like,
even the people. On the list of atrocities that we have in One Piece, we could add genocide to that list now. At least that's what the plan is currently. But I do, like, I mean, I feel like it says a lot that high society and keeping up appearances and all of that. And, like, they want the appearance of looking like a clean city. So, you know, all of the trash that they've just barely shoved like off to the side under the bed. They're just like, we gotta burn it all. We have to get rid of it. We have to just do whatever we can to appear that we are a good and fair society.
Yes. It's like, we uphold everything and there's no stink. We're fine. It's all good. And that's when Sabo starts investigating things and overhears that the rest is up to the pirates because they're setting up fuel oil and explosives around Trash Mountain right now. So Luffy and Ace are inadvertently helping the pirates to burn Grain Terminal, which is kind of messed up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and now you could put two together that, you know, for some reason, well, I mean, we already knew that Blue Jam was he was in the back pocket of the aristocrats, but it's curious why he would choose to help them out.
Yeah, it's like, what? Yeah, my first thought was that it was just paid very well. That just seems to make the most sense. But I do like this scene where Luffy and Ace are trying to sleep and they're worried about Sabo and then just trying to forget about it for now. But obviously they haven't, because they have the cup that they became brothers with right underneath their clock.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what yeah. Again, they still hold that bond so highly.
Sabo, meanwhile, he's not really made a move. He's just sort of looking around and it seems like
everybody's acting normal.
Yeah, they're all normal. And we get orders from the king, who we don't see the face of. It makes me curious if like it'll show up later.
Yeah, that is a curious choice. I think I feel like that has to be for a reason. You know, we see the faces of so many other random people, but like the fact that the king of the Goa Kingdom, you know, is like constantly his face covered by a word balloon. Which makes me think that this might be important later. I genuinely don't know.
That was my first thought, unless it's just like, it's kind of like the Onceler in the books where you don't see his face. It could be anybody.
True. So
there's two very different ways that Oda can handle that one. But Sabo goes out into town and just starts asking, like, sort of informing people. It's like, hey, there's going to be they're going to be burning Trash Mountain down. And everybody's like, yeah, I know about it, but we're not supposed to talk about it.
And of course, that makes sense, right? Like, the average person here in Highland, like, they want this, right? Like, they would probably, get rid of all the trash, you know? Like, so they're just like, yeah, I know, whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. We don't care. And Luffy and Ace finally learn about it as well. And why were they going to do that? And just like, this doesn't make any sense. But Blue Jam's like, you know about the plan now, so you can't go. So where's your treasure? He still wants that treasure from them.
Yeah, so he's still, yeah, God. I mean, as we'll see throughout the set, man, but Blue Jam is a real just nasty fellow.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, late that night, the fire starts, and the blaze can be seen from the Don's cabin. They can be seen from, of course, the city itself. Gray Terminal is on fire, and even them are like, this doesn't make any sense. Trash Mountain's too damp. How could this even start? And God, you get into it where they're like preventing people from running into Gray Terminal, but also let's get you to Central Town so you don't see what's going on, while other people hunt the freaking people trying to escape Gray Terminal.
Yeah, well, and it's of course because Great Terminal is right next to Edgetown, so Edgetown may not be on fire, but it is right next to it, so it's also clearly dangerous.
As people are freaking out, there's nowhere to run with all this. It's just like, jeez. And that's when we learn Blue Jam's motivation. He would become an aristocrat if he did this job. And he's like, all right, let's get to the city and get in there. And they closed it on him.
Immediately. My plan has gone so smoothly. I will become an aristocrat. And then it's like, hey, what's the big idea? We're supposed to evacuate this way. What's our deal? You tricked me. So it's like, well,
what did you expect, Blue Jam? Really?
You reap what you sow. Yeah. And meanwhile, while this whole place is burning down, Luffy and Ace are tied up, just left for dead.
And fortunately, Ace is able to get them free. I couldn't help but think about all this fire and the fact that Ace becomes a flame man later on.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to think too deeply about it.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously doesn't have the devil fruit at this point, but it's still very interesting.
Yeah. It is a little ironic, huh?
Yeah. I do like Ace being like, if you keep complaining, I'll leave you behind. It's like, it's hot. No, it's not hot. I mean, yep. I can't breathe. I mean, I can breathe. I mean, the air is hot. I mean, it's just fine. Poor Luffy trying to brave it out.
Yeah, trying to brave it out in a very terrible situation.
Mm-hmm. And the rumors start to spread. It's like, the Blue Jam pirates started the fire. They must be trying to disrupt the world nobles. So easy scapegoat there. And here comes Sabo. It's like, wait, I'm trying to help my friends. It's like, let's get them out of here. And the people guarding the gates just throw him out. And he's left in the streets as all the smoke billows around him. And all of a sudden, a pretty familiar face shows up in a cape. And he's like, what's wrong, young man? It's like, the ones responsible for the royal family and the aristocrats. This town stinks worse than Trash Mountain. It's filled with the stink of rotten people. And if I stay here, I'll never be free. I'm ashamed I was born an aristocrat. And obviously this is Dragon. And Dragon's just like,
yes,
wow, you've actually caused this boy to despise his own kind.
And then here's not surprising, but interesting tidbit where, he responds to Sabo just like, I understand, I was born in this country too, but I still don't have the power to change it. Which, I mean, obviously, a lot of questions here. Why the hell is Dragon here right now? But,
It's a good question. I think that there's some implications here that we definitely don't know off the top of, right off the bat. For one, who is you in this situation? Is he talking to the nobles, or is he aware of Luffy and Ace, or something else? I don't know about that one.
I think it's the line is, you've caused this boy to despise his own kind, Goa Kingdom. So I think he is reflecting on the Goa Kingdom, that it is like the system that created this boy has caused him to hate his own kind.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I disassociated the Goa Kingdom part.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And Sabo is just immediately like, wait, what I said actually matters to you? It's like, yeah, of course. And I think Dragon's here because we know a celestial dragon showing up. Celestial dragon is showing up. Mm-hmm. So what's his relationship to them? Does he try to take them out, or like
there is so much that we don't know about this, and it's funny too because in the next couple panels we see Eva's here off screen talking to Dragon, but I remember that one bit during Impel Down where there was a quick flashback where Eva was like, "You're always looking towards do you have a kid in East Blue? Like you're always looking in that direction," and he's just like, "Shut up." So clearly he was born here and he's like a couple miles from his son. So he clearly has some kind of connection and affection towards this place. But yeah, it's very curious, Yeah, why is he here?
Also, well, we do have an SBS, and well, most of it's not really too necessary to know. It's like, I have an issue with the answer to the final question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for a woman to become an editor of One Piece, or all the editors of boys comics supposed to be men? And he just like, yeah, women with big boobs are fine by me. If I had an editor like that, I'd work even harder. But he's like, to be honest, the editorial department of Jump is filled with perverts. I think it's your best interest to stay away from there. And that's like, he's probably not wrong, but also like, come on.
It's a joke with uncomfortable implications. So I feel like I vaguely have heard somewhere that Jump does have female editors now. Maybe I heard of one at some point, or maybe that's not true at all. Like, I'm really like, I don't remember, but I know that this was kind of an issue for a long time.
Yeah, well, I know there's been female writers and
Oh yeah,
manga
definitely
over the course. Like, the Gray Man is one of the first to come up to my mind, at least in terms of Jump.
Well, it's specifically about editors, not manga artists.
Right.
Yeah, and so I feel like there is there is definitely a degree of like weird kind of boys clubbiness when it comes to Jump editorial that I feel like hasn't really gone away yet. And of course, like it's not great.
No.
This answer is not great. Of course, Oda's being at least a little bit sarcastic, where he's just like, yeah, I'll just if I had an editor with huge knockers, like, yeah, that'll be, yeah. So it's just a joke falls flat. And
yeah,
I think and says more. I feel like reflects more poorly on kind of the brass at Shonen Jump in a way that I feel like has maybe improved slightly by 5% maybe since then, but I am also genuinely not. I don't know enough to know for sure. Not great.
No, not really.
Great.
No. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to chapter 587. I Will Never Run Away. And what a pairing, Eva and Dragon.
Yeah, they're all. These look like normal snails. Or no, I guess they are transponder snails. They look like they got a little bit of a telephone on them.
Yeah, I think they are some of them do, and yeah, I got one. The black one down in the middle is just the shell is shaped like poo. So
yeah,
you got that whole joke. But it's also weird to just see Dragon in casual clothes.
Right.
Also, I can't help but notice that his shirt has, dragon on the sleeve, but also a dragon on the shirt. It's like on the front itself. That is totally that's the Dragon Quest font and the dragon shape behind like Dragon Quest 1 and whatnot. Like that's a reference.
Yeah.
Get into the chapter itself, and we see flashback to how Blue Jam was convinced, and like talking to the king actually through a transponder snail. It's like, no, Trash Mountain's a great hiding place for us. It's like, no, but once this is finished, I'm going to use my authority to maybe make you an aristocrat. And that's how he was tricked. And his ship's on fire. He's like swearing vengeance. We know he's in rough like he's not making it out of this.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and of course, while all this is happening, at the royal palace, the king's just like, oh, it's nighttime, but the sky's so bright, close the curtains.
And then we get the real, really bad stuff here. It's like, hey, Dad, why are the people at Trash Mountain not human? Why are they being burned? And it's like, oh no, they're just getting their just desserts because it's their fault for not being born aristocrats. It's like, yeah, they're so stupid for not being born aristocrats. It's like, God, it's so cartoonishly evil, but it's also one of those things like nowadays it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
You can definitely see people acting like this.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's really easy to commit atrocities when, like with the way that they're just like, the people at Trash Mountain, aren't considered human. So if they're not considered human, that means we can do all sorts of, commit all sorts of atrocities towards them. Again, like this is a genocide. That is what this is. And that like sort of this is like, a conversation between like a random child and a random aristocrat. And it's sort of like obviously these people aren't doing anything bad, but they, kind of like, they are just living within the system, and they're just like, don't think about it. Don't think about it too hard. Just like it's easy to just dehumanize and forget. Not our problem. So it's interesting that like kind of what I think is supposed to be the view of the average person in Highland, at least. You know, of just like, well, they're subhuman, so we don't have to worry about them. So, you know, we can just abide by while our society does all the horrible things to these people, because they're not really people. So, yeah.
Yep.
It does. I feel like in 2024 it hits extra different, but like, it's a good old fashioned fascism.
Oh yes. But things are not going so well for Luffy and Ace as they're trying to escape the fire, not really making much headway, except they do come across Blue Jam.
He's committed to the bit at this point where he's like, I got nothing to lose, basically.
Yeah, I'm gonna die anyway, so yeah, let's die together now. But you know what? You didn't tell me where the treasure it was, so we're going to take it before the fire consumes it. Now, where is it? And they're just like, wait, you're about to die and you still want to know about the treasure?
Yeah, and even Ace, as a 10-year-old, is just like, this guy's freaking ridiculous.
Ace actually is like, fine, I'll tell you. And Luffy's trying to protest, but he's like, no, Sabo would understand. And right now, your life, and he corrects himself, our lives are more important. And you're starting to see the change in Ace, where he's like very protective of Luffy, and how protecting Luffy gave him a sort of a reason to live.
Yes.
It is better for Luffy that he was born, and that gives him hope.
Yeah.
Or they immediately take Luffy and Ace hostage, because even though they told him where it is, like, oh no, you could have lied, so you're coming with us. And it's like, no,
just like we're committed to die together.
Yeah, you're gonna get us killed. Just go ahead and die by yourself. And Blue Jam's just like, no, I'm gonna use your treasure to make a comeback and get revenge on the nobles. So they think we're just trash, including your friend. It's like, no, don't talk about Sabo like that.
Yes, here again, talking about the kind of like, obviously the nobles hate the people of Trash Mountain, but you know, like there's the other side of it too. We're like, oh, they must all hate us, you know. And he was just basically like, you know, talking about Sabo like, you know, it was a cheap thrill. You were his playthings, you know. And he was thumbing his nose at you all along.
They're just like, no, that's not the case at all. And Luffy bites the guy who's holding him. And the guy takes out his sword, and actually, like, Luffy tries to block it with his pipe, but it just cuts clean through and slashes him across the face.
Yeah, through the eye, it looks like, if you could see in another panel.
It looks like it kind of like to his eyes, but I don't think so, because I think we'd have even more scars on Luffy if that was the case.
True. It might have just opened up the wound that was above it, too.
Yeah. And seeing the guy ready to stab down onto Luffy and just outright kill him, and Ace just calls out, "Don't you hurt Luffy," and it's enough to knock out all of them. Which
is fascinating, because that's Supreme King Haki right there. I don't think we saw Ace ever use it while he was alive, you know, in the current timeline. So that's sort of the reveal. I guess that when he saw Luffy use it in Marineford, and I guess Ace was like, "You too?" I guess he was kind of referring to himself as well.
I guess so.
I genuinely did not know that Ace had Supreme King Haki.
In a lot of ways, it makes sense.
It makes sense. It for sure makes sense, but I did not know there was an on-screen confirmation of it.
Mm-hmm. But it's still cool. Even cooler is the Don showing up out of nowhere. Is like, stop it, you bald-headed twit.
With the save.
The Don with the save, and with all the other bandits. It's like, oh man, thank God the bandits are here to stop the pirates. I'm like, wait a second. This isn't quite right. So we get a face-off between Blue Jam and the Don's bandits. And she's like, hey, I was here to watch these brats. So now, let's run.
The Joseph Joestar technique.
It's a brilliant technique. However, Ace does not ascribe by that technique. He's declaring he will never run away. It's just like, let it go. You don't know how deadly Blue Jam is. You're just a kid. You can't fight that pirate. And Luffy wants to join him. Like, no, you can't. And the Don just says, no, take Luffy and go on. I'll make sure Ace comes back with me.
And she's here for a fight too.
Oh yeah.
which is awesome.
Sticking with it. And Blue Jam is just like, oh, a woman and a child. Maybe you got some tricks up your sleeve, but your overconfidence will be your undoing. And it's just like,
Blue Jam really is pathetic. He really is. I feel like just, it is so fascinating. Because of course, like this whole turn of events has been caused by the stink of society, the nobles viewing down as, actual human beings like trash. But here we have no class solidarity, Blue Jam. Absolutely none.
No, no.
He's out for himself first.
He will
and
step
foremost.
on others in order to get what he wants. So there's
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that this situation is presented with that level of nuance, I think is really fascinating, because we do have the cartoonishly evil genocide happening, but also the man who is the victim who thinks that he's still somehow better, but doesn't understand that he's also being viewed just as bad as the rest.
Yeah, and that's a common trope in real life as well.
Uh-huh.
So, hey, but fortunately for the people stuck in the flames, there's an explosion that opened a path through the fire, and they can see a ship leading straight to the shore. So we get towards it, and sure enough, there is Eva and Dragon, and behind them, Kuma.
Yep, you can see him. There he is.
Totally Kuma.
Yep. I want to point out a fan theory, because I'm going to call shenanigans on the quote unquote explosion. So the biggest running theory is that Dragon maybe has a devil fruit that allows him to control like the wind or weather. And so we saw that potentially back at Rogue Town, right? Like this, I feel like that's what this is. The way that it is like, oh, look at that. It is the path straight to Dragon's ship, and just sort of seeing like the wind and the fwoo sound effect as it feels too specific. That it's just like, oh, this random path opened up.
Yeah, I see. My first thought was actually it was Eva's Hellwink, but
that's also could be what it is,
But it is damage on a scale that I don't think we've seen Eva pull off before.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, again, Oda has a lot about Dragon still real close to the chest, so that's why I'm able to be like, that's a fan theory. We still. This might be this and Rogue Town might be the only times we've seen him potentially do like anything.
Yeah. Unsurprising for some reason, but yeah, still very much so. But yeah, he's here. He's like, this nation is the future of the world in miniature, a world where unwanted things are discarded can never be truly happy. I will change the world one of these days, but those of you who with the will to fight for freedom, get on the ship. So he just got a bunch of new revolutionaries.
Yeah, basically, which I feel like you can kind of extrapolate that this is more or less how he does things. Like, pointing out places in the world where kind of like the nobility and the aristocrats like are kind of like drunk with power and are seeking out the oppressed. So I could see this kind of thing happening all over the place, but yeah.
The night passes, the king sleeps through the rest of it, the people look on at the fire, and we get just this caption saying, Ace and Dawn didn't come back after the Holocaust at Grade Terminal. It's like, oh my God, just... Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's what it is.
that's what just happened.
Outright said it.
Yeah.
Luffy is in bed. They're trying to take care of him because his wounds are really deep. And he can't go look for Ace and Dawn because the military is running around Trash Mountain cleaning up after the fire, and like they're sweeping up the burned trash, exterminating any survivors. If you go there, you will be killed.
And the way that they're just like, I expected a lot more bodies. Ooh, it stinks. The bones probably got burned up too. It makes me wonder how many people escaped with Dragon versus actually were victimized. I would imagine it seems like just kind of a scant few.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Poor Luffy is like, I want to see Ace, and Sabo has to be worried about him too, because Sabo's always in his thoughts. Mm-hmm. And that's a nice thing to remember. And the people are getting the news about Blue Jam's ship burning in the end, and like Rogue's got taken care of, and Sabo's still stuck with his father, and just like, you just need to study, just like Sally, and just that smile as like, your mother and I gave you life. It's your duty to please us. Boy, that drives me nuts.
Yeah, they really are. It's just, again, it stinks. It stinks here.
Yeah, and then Stelly just working his way. He's like, you always have me, father. It's like, you are such a good boy. Let's buy you some expensive clothes.
Again, just cartoonishly evil, but is he wrong?
Yeah, that's for sure. But Sabo is just like so desperate for freedom, so that to the point that on the day that the world aristocrats are set to visit Goa, he sets out. He grabbed the fishing boat and raises his pirate flag, and it's like, all right, it's a good day to set sail. And that's how we end the chapter. Sabo's getting ahead of the rest.
He's gotten so desperate for freedom, he's decided that he's just gonna leave all on his own.
Yeah. I mean, after seeing that, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's pretty bad.
It does. Uh-huh.
Let's get to the next chapter, 588, Sabo's Ocean. And fun little 2-page spread. We get a nice tea party. I'm going to say tea party with donuts.
It looks almost, the fashion's almost a little like steampunkish.
Steampunkish, but also got a little bit of like Alice in Wonderland vibe from it, to a degree.
For sure. Yeah. I miss the crew. Every time I see a color spread, I'm like, man.
Yeah. Although I love the gangster rabbit next to Nami.
Yes.
That's good stuff. We get to the chapter itself as the people are freaking out. It's like, somebody stole my fishing vessel, and he thinks he's a pirate or something? Like, what's that kid trying to do? And they're like, oh God, the world government ship is coming. He's interfering with the ceremony. And Sabo's just like, nah, the thing I'm most afraid of being swallowed by the nation and turning into someone I'd hate. So I'm not going back. And that's when one of the bandits spots Sabo as they're looking out over things. And then we see the world government ship that's carrying the celestial dragon, and its size in relation to Sabo's ship. And good God.
Yeah. And you can see it's just like almost instantaneous where you see the celestial dragon kind of talking to his retainers, just like, what's that? It looks like a fishing boat, sir. And really, like there's a little bit of dialogue, but just like next page, grabs a gun, fires, and boom. Yeah. That's it.
Just immediately like opens fire on Sabo's ship, and all the while Luffy's just like, Ace isn't dead, we gotta go find him, it'll be all right. And we got Dogura out there who's the guy who spotted Sabo, looking around for them. Just leave it to him. And that's when you go back to him. It's like, oh God, Sabo, are you okay? And people are like, oh God, is the kid okay?
Yeah, they must have angered the celestial dragon.
And Sabo's attempting to put out the fire, and we find out this is Jalmac.
Saint Jalmac. I don't know if he ever comes back up.
Probably not, but he matches the look of a celestial dragon. And even his person next to him is like, there's a child on that boat. It's like, nah, he hosted a pirate flag. That makes him a pirate. So besides, how dare that lowly peasant cross my ship's path? And just finishes blowing it up and kills Sabo. Like, we see the wreckage. The hat is destroyed. Like, Sabo died on his journey before it even began.
Unceremoniously.
The full callousness of the celestial dragons.
Which is, again, completely unnecessary. It was a drive-by.
And it also shows, again, in the same way as Blue Jam, how he thought he could become a noble, an aristocrat, and think he would get the best life. Sabo was a noble, was an aristocrat. Yeah, he was raising a black flag, the pirate flag, but that's not why he did that. It's because it crossed his path. So that means even these aristocrats are trash compared to this world government in that view.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
it's just funny how they all support it because they get that little bit of comfort.
Yeah, I feel like it's very critical of like social climbers, where you're kicking down the ladder for the person below you. Where it's just like it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter who you are, because the people at the very, very top will never respect you.
Yeah. Again, not wrong. But while that's all going on, Ace and Dadan actually make it back. Ace carrying Dadan.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Just showing that
not
strength.
Small.
And Luffy immediately hugs Ace and is like, hey, did you think I was dead? But what are you crying for? How dare you kill me off? And it just...
These lines are a little mean. There's a couple of like that where Ace is just like, why did you kill me off? You thought I was dead? It's like, don't say that.
Ace reveals that they managed to beat Blue Jam, but the fire blocked their path and they had nowhere to run, and so Dadan got burned all over. So they hid themselves in the middle forest by the river where the fire couldn't reach, and he would go into town to steal medicine and try to keep Dadan alive.
Man, those survival instincts, man. They made it through.
Yeah, and all the while Ace is still hoping, like, I hope Sabo's not worried about us. And God, we see the celestial dragon again riding a slave.
Yep.
Carrying other slaves behind him. as people cheer for these people. It's just like, good God.
They love this. The people love it.
But we get to Don asking, why didn't you run away back there, Ace?
I love this bit.
Yeah, this is a good bit. And where he just says, I get so angry and I feel like if I run away, I'll lose something I could never get back. And this time, Luffy was behind me. And boy, does that just explain his actions at the end of the Paramount War.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what this flashback is trying to establish. Because we didn't have that much time with Ace in the current time. So it's like, we kind of have to explain a little bit, like, yeah, obviously the events leading up to Ace's death, like it was kind of foolish on his part. Like any sort of normal person would think that. So it does, I think it is worth considering establishing the kind of person that Ace is. And I think that this flashback does a really good job of establishing, like, no, like not only that he will never run away, but it's that line, where Luffy was behind me, that like it triggers a bit of a flashback into Dawn, where she was talking to Garp talk about Roger.
Even when facing an army they can't beat, Roger would stand his ground and fight. And they're like, wait, knowing when to retreat is a part of warfare. It's like, maybe, but he wouldn't flee because the people he loved were standing behind him. If he ran away, he'd be endangering his friends, but it might be more accurate to say, it's not about pride alone. He's making sure the enemy doesn't go after his friends. And boy, Ace versus Whitebeard, how he's like trying to help his crew escape. Same thing there. And
Same
then
thing. Yep.
It makes you wonder, did he stop to confront Aki Inu because he knew Aki Inu was close and he wanted to protect Luffy, or was it because of the words he actually said about Whitebeard? And after this, I feel more inclined to like just trying to protect Luffy.
Both for sure. But I mean, I feel like the fact that it ultimately what killed Ace was Aki Inu going after Luffy and him, standing in the way to block it. Yeah. So I think sort of characterizing it as like, no, like the buck stops with me, like I have to stand my ground so that I can, protect what's important to me. And I feel like kind of viewing it from that angle, it says a lot. And I think kind of tying it into, it's the same way that Roger acted, I think is also very, very fascinating.
Oh, very much so. And, we just get the word. It's like one time he destroyed the entire army of a nation just because they talked bad about his friend. It's like, boy, does that sound like Luffy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, too, is that, like, I feel like this sequence is doing double duty by kind of illuminating characterization for both Ace and Luffy by tying it to Roger, which I think is really clever.
It's like he can be violent, short-tempered, and self-centered when he gets mad, but in his heart, he's straightforward and pure like a child. And it's just like, again, it's those two. Garp just says, like, I couldn't bring myself to hate him, and that's why I took Ace under my wing. And that's when Don's like, I'm the one who's taking care of him.
Yeah, just hilarious.
But she is just like, well, even if he hates his father, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And that's when Dogura comes back and reveals the news about Sabo. And Ace does not take it well, and it's like Dogura is just like I couldn't believe it myself, but it's what happened. And he tries to, like, if he was truly happy, do you think he would have gone to sea? Do you think he would have raised a pirate flag and gone out by himself? Because they're just like disbelievable about that, and they're like, "Oh, Sabo, you weren't happy at all." It's like, why didn't we try to go get him?
Yeah, right. Like
there's guilt there.
Yeah, I feel like they trusted, like, oh, like, again, throughout these past couple of chapters, it's been like, Sabo's gone, but we have to kind of believe in him, right? Like,
yeah,
we'll see each other again. He's safe. We'll figure something out. We'll see each other again. But it's heartbreaking. Yeah,
because Ace immediately wants to go out and avenge Sabo, and the Don's like, no, you're not. Yeah. This is one thing you cannot do. You will get yourself killed. You'll die and nobody will remember you, and you will be worthless. It's the nation that killed Sabo. It's the world. Do you think you can do anything about that? Your father died and changed the entire area, the entire era. Become as big a man as him before you even think about getting yourself killed. And tie up this idiot.
Tie him up, yeah. Oh, man.
Then it's just a very familiar sight of Luffy crying into the heavens for Sabo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very much like with Ace.
Yeah, well, and this tore me up because at first, Ace, tied up is just like, "Shut up, a man should never cry," and then you turn the page.
Yeah, and we find out that Luffy cried himself to sleep, and a letter comes in from Sabo that he sent before going out to sea, and he's just like, "I decided to set sail before you guys. My destination is anyone but here, but I'm going to become stronger so I can be a pirate. So the ocean is vast and free. We will meet again because pirates are freer than anybody else in this world. I don't know if you're the older brother or if I am, but we do have one little brother, and the bond we share is the greatest treasure I have. So Luffy is still weak and a crybaby, but he's a little brother, so take care of him." And that's when Ace breaks down crying.
Break down, yeah. Just, oh man, that letter tore me up.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Again, it's just it's tragic.
I mean, we had backstories for everybody where somebody died, and in Luffy's case, it didn't seem as bad because Shanks only lost an arm in the grand scheme of thing. But no, here's another flashback. We got to correct that. Here's somebody that died.
Yeah, of course, I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but you can kind of understand with the introduction of this third brother, Sabo, and his eventual death in this flashback, tied also into Luffy having just lost Ace outside of the flashback, and it's like Luffy's biggest fear is being alone, and we've established that throughout this flashback. The way that he attaches himself and follows around Ace like just like a little kid. Mm-hmm. But now it feels like he is truly alone right now.
Yeah.
And that it feels like you thought Luffy lost everything. Like, no, he really lost everything.
He can go on just knowing Ace is out there. Because
exactly.
You don't have to worry. He doesn't have to be directly with them, but knowing they're there is what gave him comfort and made him not feel alone. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's an interesting character study for all three of them, really.
Yeah, for sure. It is. God, oh boy.
Next up, chapter 589, Will of the Winds, and we get our two prison girls. I forget their names, but there they are.
I had to look up Domino, who's the one on the right, and it's Sadie's the one on the left.
That's right.
Like I was when I read that, I was like, who's that?
There's a lot of hair between the Domino.
Two of them. Yeah. I was like, who's that supposed to be?
I will say though, that might be the most clever adoption of McDonald's because
God, you're right.
It's usually like Whack-Donald's in Japan. Yeah, they get around it and they'll just flip the M, but instead they took the M and made it into the Navy symbol, and that's brilliant.
That's so good.
I also like how Domino's like refined because she's eating her burger with a knife and fork, and Sadie's just chomping into it. I feel like we got to talk about these more because I'm so used to just being the Straw Hats, but no, we get other characters now.
There's a lot of great characterization in these. It's so good.
For sure. You love seeing characters in their downtime.
Yeah.
We get into the chapter itself, and Luffy is just depressed on the coastline, thinking about Sabo, just face down, and here comes Ace, who just bonks him on the back of the head. And it doesn't even get a response out of Luffy. He just hides his face further with his hat. That's when Ace says, like, the treasure we hid in the Middle Forest is all gone. Sabo never got to use it either, so I don't care about it anymore. There's no point in gathering treasure we can't even protect.
Ah.
And that indicates to me that Blue Jam survived.
My assumption was that it burned. Yeah, I think it burned, but
I think it's in the Middle Forest. That's not part of that's not part of Great Terminal. Because they moved it from Great Terminal when they thought it was going to be found. So I think that indicates Blue Jam is still alive. I could be wrong, but that's sort of what I took out of it.
Genuinely unsure.
Not like he's a huge threat if Ace beat him as a child,
Yeah.
But that's when Luffy declares, I want to get stronger. Lots stronger. So there won't be anything I can't protect. And nobody will have to go away ever again. It's just like,
hey, so you remember when Luffy used Gears 2 for the first time, and he specifically said that I have to get stronger to, protect the things I want to protect, so that nobody will ever have to go away again.
Yep. And after all that, people had to go away again. So no wonder this is hitting him so hard in the present. This is when we get the line from the other flashbacks. It's like he's saying, "Don't die, Ace." It's like, hey, remember this, I'm not going to die. Sabo told me to
Stop
take
it.
care of you, and I'm not going to leave my crybaby little brother behind. Whatever killed Sabo was the opposite of freedom, and he wasn't able to. Died without being able to grasp freedom. But we're still alive, and so we have to live without any regrets.
I feel like this is the driving force behind what gets them to go out to sea, where it's just like we have to take advantage, and it's interesting that it's also that, like, they flash back to Sabo saying, like, we become true aristocrats when we turn 18. That's why I'm leaving when I turn 17. So that's sort of planting the seeds for when they leave and why.
Yeah, I like that. I like that there's reasoning behind it. It's not just, I'm going to go now. It's just when they hit 17, that's when they set out to sea. It's like, hey, nothing's going to stop us. We're going to be pirates. And then we flash to Dragon, who happens to be somewhere else after the sailing to that port, where we see a young girl practicing swordsmanship while a young boy is lifting a huge rock above his head for the 581st time.
Yep. This is Shimotsuki Village, which is apparently in or near the Kingdom of Goa.
Yeah, somewhere, only a day away.
Yeah.
That's all we know. Love Dragon's boat, though. The sea serpent across the entire ship. That's cool.
It rules. Yeah, that's awesome.
We don't get any kind of news, but they just get some some food from the dojo and return to Baltigo. And that's all we really get out of it. There's not much really said. Dragon seems to have some sort of connection with this village, which, I mean, the only adult here would be Kuina's father.
I'm racking my brain to see if there's something there that makes sense later on. I can't think of anything off the top of my head to be like, oh, that explains, this or that. But, just it's an interesting little scene that like they just kind of stopped by Zoro's village.
Yeah, just checking in, I guess. But a little after, and this is endemic.
Oh boy, yeah, it is.
After the investigation was over, the people returned to their old ways, and Trash Mountain was exactly as it was before.
This whole thing was for nothing.
Yep. Nothing was accomplished except for putting up appearances.
All of this genocide for what? All of this for nothing. Oh my goodness, it is. It hurts because it's so it's so pointed.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so
no reform, no change, just the appearance of look how good we are.
It's cynical. Not I don't want to say cynical on the part of the storytelling, but cynical on the nobility.
Just drives home the point that they just don't care.
Yeah. Oh man. I can't emphasize enough how much the actual world of One Piece sucks.
Right.
Like, we don't dwell on it too much. I feel like at any one given point in time, but like,
this might be the most we've dwelled on it. Honestly.
Yeah. This is the most we've seen. Really, like, we're seeing nobility that, one, isn't Alabasta, and two, isn't like the Celestial Dragons. So it really is just kind of like, here's what low tier nobility looks like, and it's just as bad.
The only kingdom we've seen with decent royals is Alabasta. Even Drum Kingdom has been pretty crap. It's better now, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Which again,
we had to overthrow it in order to do that.
Very much on purpose, and I'm very much looking forward to unpacking that. But
oh man, that'll be interesting. But I love these little scenes between Luffy and Ace as they're training. It's a training arc that we don't get much in One Piece. It's cool to see them like try to get stronger. Luffy trying to master his Gum pistol still. And I love how Ace is just like, rubber isn't made for battle. It's like, what? Am I wrong? It's like, hey, don't mock the Gum fruit. You'll see one of these days.
Yeah, I kind of love, because all of these basic attacks, just like the Gum pistol, and I think he tried to do it before too, and it just like bopped him in the head.
Yeah.
So it's funny how like this seems surprisingly hard to control, but Luffy now is able to make it feel so natural.
Mm-hmm. And they apparently they're treating a rock as if it was Sabo because they miss him.
Well, these poor kids are so traumatized.
And Luffy just going, Sabo was a nicer brother. It's like, you wish I died instead? It's just ridiculous. And then it makes them actually start their own countries.
Yep.
Again, Ace learning lessons about these fights where Luffy tries to take on a bear. He's like, oh, I thought you were going to be strong enough to live on your own. And the bear actually messes up Luffy. He's like, yeah, it's a little different when there's three of you.
Yeah. Which, again, I feel like they're having to train and learn and, like, get used to life without Sabo.
Man, Machina might be one of the low-key best girls in the series.
Yeah. She's so supportive.
Yeah, she's so supportive and just knows how to handle these kids. And just like, wait, you want to know how to thank someone? Well, I'm Luffy's big brother, so one of these days I'll have to go thank that red-haired captain for saving Luffy.
And I love it. She just gives him that look.
Just gives him a smile. It's like, what?
Yeah. Well, and I love that he tries it. They get caught stealing some food, and they bow and say, "Thanks for the chow." but they still stole it, so they don't know how to behave.
Yeah, it's really good. But the two of them eventually get strong enough they can take down the bear. They can have some bear stew. And just all these things about them growing up and causing havoc and taking on animals and fighting Garp.
Yeah, Garp showing back up for some tough love. Yeah, and it's just, seeing them grow up like this.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun to see such a young. That's funny when he's saying he was only 22 when he, like currently, but seeing 17-year-old Ace take off and leave for it, and we get to see, 14-year-old Luffy, and it's good. I don't know. It's good to see him at these ages.
I love this. We have a little bit of a just a small running gag where it's just like, Ace is leaving, Dodon's just like, oh man, he's always such a hopeless brat. And he's just like, oh yeah, he's got a message for you. It's like, oh, what? He wants to complain about me one last time, and he's just, thanks for everything. And he's just like, and Dodon's just in tears.
And Luffy has finally perfected his gum pistol, and he just gets stronger and stronger. And they get in the newspaper how Ace already has his own crew and ship. And he's like, I got to keep up with them. And 3 years passed, and he's now 17. And he's like, are you going to see me off? It's like, even if the mayor and Makino don't mind, the people of Windmill Village would panic if they saw us coming down from the mountain. So just get out of here. It's like, all right, well, thanks for everything, you guys. And he calls out, the Don, I hate bandits. Shut up, you brat, but I like you guys. Oh, just shut up and get out of here. All crying again. And we see Luffy take off in just an old fishing, just a small dinghy. See the barrel, see his little bit of supplies. And he's like, all right, look at me, Sabo. I'm going out to sea too. So Sabo was first, Ace was second. I'm third, but I'm not going to lose. I'll catch up to you right away. And we even see the scene after he punched out the...
right at the end of chapter 1.
Mm-hmm. And just goes to show how much that training has paid off for him. He heads out screaming he's going to be king of the pirates. And that ends our flashback as we go back to present day. And Luffy's like, me, king of the pirates? I'm so weak.
Man.
And that...
What a flashback, man.
Yeah. That's a really effective flashback. And, I mean, to just have Luffy scream out how weak he is.
Yeah.
When we've seen... One of the things we pointed out the entire time. Yeah. One of the things we pointed out the entire time was just like how strong he is, where he didn't get a challenge until he got to the Grand Line.
That he was, all of that training, kind of in his hometown, like actually did sort of, it prepared him for kind of the events leading up to the Grand Line. Mm-hmm. But it was clear that, the challenges started to become greater and greater. I love that contrast between, again, Luffy at the end of chapter 1 feeling like he's ready to take on the world and he's yelling out, I'm going to become king of the pirates, and then he's just like, I can't, I've lost everything.
It's brutal, but it's like that training took him a long time, took him pretty far, because he had trouble with Crocodile, but that's mainly because of his devil fruit and figuring out ways to actually hit him. Once he was able to hit him, he kind of took out Crocodile with no real issue. Yeah,
they were at least more evenly matched.
And again, got lucky with Aneru for what came after that. So he just had to get stronger, which fortunately he realized he needed to get stronger, and he did manage to unlock the gear stuff to be able to handle Enies Lobby. But after that point, it's just like all of a sudden the ceiling started coming faster and faster towards him.
Yeah, and again, I feel like that's what I love about Marineford so much, is that it really does feel kind of like a, oh no, now we're actually seeing what everybody at kind of the high level is really capable of, and Luffy is realistically completely in over his head.
Yeah.
And that
he's not wrong about being weak at this point. Like,
yeah, but he was still able to survive. Again, dude, we'll talk about this a bit more in the next chapter, but yeah, I feel like that it's not all just about raw strength. And, there's something that, like Mihawk said, where it's just like, there's something about Luffy that really gets people to want to help him. And that might be like the biggest strength of all.
Yeah. Look at Ace. Look at Ace and Sabo, how he's able to convince them. Mm-hmm. We do have an SBS. I do like how people are like, well, how's Luffy was unharmed by Alvida's club, but it's spiked. And it's just like, no, I've changed out how they were. They were spread too far apart. That's why he wasn't affected by it.
Oh, sure. All right.
I don't know if that's legit or he's actually telling the truth, but he put an example. So I wonder if that actually is the case. Like, he's not actually doing one of his BS answers like he's done in the past.
Yeah. Unsure.
Other thing I did not realize is that I've never watched Rocky, so I didn't realize he had a pet goldfish named Moby Dick. So that's what a person thought he was named after.
I've watched Rocky and I did not remember that.
So it's like, just like Whitebeard's ship. And he's like, well, no, it's actually Moby Dick after the Herman Melville novel. And it turns out that's actually called White Whale in Japan. I did not know that, but that's how it's perfect for Whitebeard because, well, white.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. All right. Final chapter for the set, 590, My Little Brother.
Just low-key, this is one of my favorite chapters in the series.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites.
Real good. Also, I love the fact that Mihawk is eating his takoyaki with his little knife that he stabs Zora with.
Yeah.
Or beats Zora with. That's fantastic.
Again, I feel like there's Fishman eating fish is weird to me. I'll never not think it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, fish eat other fish, but it's a little odd.
Yeah, you do you.
I guess they're supposed to be evolving from men rather than fish. It's sort of like, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those. Don't think about it too hard.
No, but yeah, we start out with Windmill Village again in the East Blue, where Garp has come back. And they're like, hey, we read all about the war. What happened to Luffy? What's going to happen to the world now that Whitebeard's dead? And there's like, hey, there's been some pirate ships off the coast the last few days. We can't even sleep at night. Oh, no, don't worry about it. I just sank a pirate ship out there. So there were a bunch of amateurs that had no idea.
It's just like, just riding on by. All right, might as well. Just imagine, due to no fault of your own, just getting taken out by the legendary Navy hero Garp.
I know, right?
That's bad. It's like, what is he doing all the way out here in the middle of nowhere?
In the weakest ocean. Just like with...
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
You thought you were big and bad and ready for it.
Don Krieg.
You thought you were big and bad and ready for it? Nope. Here comes some impossibly strong guy that just beats you down right away.
Just because he felt like it.
Yeah.
And I like that, again, just a neat little detail. Like, again, now that, like, Whitebeard is dead and, his final words, the declaring that the One Piece is real, like, it has kind of emboldened pirates so that there's more pirate activity, so the Garp gets his men to say that, like, this area is now secured by Navy headquarters.
Specifically Garp, so you don't mess with it. But he learns that bandits have taken over Makino's tavern, and that's when the Dawn comes out and immediately smacks Garp across the face with her club.
Yeah, but she says she's got, you got some nerve coming back here. And I love this so much, right? Like, she is just like, you were there at the battle, they were right in front of you. How could you stand there and do nothing to save Ace? And then she's crying and, Garp feels a teardrop coming down his face. So it's just like, she's just roasting him. Your job always came for your family. Hero of the Navy, my foot. Go to hell, you worthless geezer. Like, she's pissed.
Yeah.
But also correct.
Yeah. She's not wrong. And Makino has to stand in front of her. It's like, please stop. Those two were within his reach, but couldn't save them. Don't you see? Garp is hurting more than anyone. And Dodon just stops and says, no. You're wrong. Luffy is the one that's hurting the most. again, we get Makino getting these flashbacks. It's like, oh, I'm Ace. Who the heck are you? It's like, no, don't say it like that. It's rude. How about, hey, you bastard? Who the crap are you?
Who the crap are you?
Just how they're
that's adorable.
To say thank you. Yeah, that is super adorable. Just these rough and tumble kids taught manners by Makino. And she has to run off crying just because it just...
Yeah, this is all...
It hurts. It's raw.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't you know how much he looked up to his brother? And that's when the mayor comes out. It's like, do you know what happened to Luffy? The newspaper said he's missing. Well, he's like, he fled in the submarine, but they didn't find his body, so I'm pretty sure he's alive somewhere. So they're like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. And I love that, God, this character development, because we saw during the flashback, Didon was just like, he's like, oh, these damn kids, you know, like, and so by the end of the flashback, you know, she was in tears and just like, oh, they do care. And so now she's kind of completely flipped over to the point where, you know, she's fighting Garp on site because she couldn't protect his kid. He couldn't protect the kids.
Yeah. And he's like, no matter what kind of pirate that Luffy becomes, I'm on his side. So, Luffy, don't let anybody beat you.
Man, no, Didon, ride or die.
Yeah.
she's such a homie.
It makes you just love Didon at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's already some kind of attachment to her just because of, you know, it's kind of a funny gag is like being a bandit being forced to raise these two kids by Garp. But it worked out.
Yeah, I am really glad for that scene because, like, we were talking about it during Marineford, where it's like Garp really was conflicted, right? And you really got the sense that even he didn't know what to do, and was trying to balance his duty versus his family, and ultimately, you know, like he sat by, which I don't know. You can argue whether or not that was the right choice, but.
It's the world they went into, but like what could he have done?
Yeah, exactly. And
Garp is strong, but we know he's not the strongest.
Yeah, and he's getting up there in years. So it is just I'm glad that we are kind of like in the story we are kind of having that nuance addressed of like where do you stand in all of this, and like, yes, you could have theoretically done something, but like, would it have ultimately changed anything? Like who can say? And whether or not, I feel like there isn't a clear answer on whether or not what Garp did was right, and I really appreciate that.
But we continue on, and somewhere in the new world, Shanks has helped Marco and the rest of the Whitebeard pirates put up graves, testaments to Ace and Whitebeard.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, enemy or not, Whitebeard was a man who commanded respect. So even Sengoku felt that way. And it says, I'll be going now. It's like, and he just even thinks, Luffy, I know you're in a lot of pain. I was surprised to hear what Ace did for you, but it's exactly what Roger would have done too.
There it is. Yep. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. I wish the captain would run away or let himself cry sometimes. So, Luffy, you grew up and become a man by experiencing victory and defeat by doing difficult things and shedding tears. It's all right to cry. Just overcome it. And I think that's a big thing. But also that shot of Shanks walking between all the members of Whitebeard's crew.
Man, you want to talk about a man who commanded respect. Like again, we've seen still relatively little of Shanks, but I feel like his actions and the way other characters respond to him, I think says a lot about, I mean, and he's an emperor, right? Just as Whitebeard is. So he is a highly respected individual. And I like that Shanks kind of has this monologue that like he still believes in Luffy, right? Like he may be a pirate, and ultimately I feel like the implication of Shanks being an emperor means that like he is going to have to come to head with Luffy at some point, right?
Right.
But there's still that level of like mutual respect that I really appreciate. And so what I'm saying this as you know, they have not interacted in any way at any other point in the manga. So I'm not like teasing or so like, who knows what'll happen, but just, you know, as pirates, how their eventual interaction will go down. I feel like the way that Shanks kind of reflects on Luffy and his actions is really telling.
Yeah. And then you just get the brutal moments with Luffy at his like every time we like, this is him at his lowest, this is him at his lowest. No, this is him at his lowest. Pounding the ground, telling Jinbei to go away, and Jinbei's like, no, I'm not going, I won't let you go hurting yourself. He's like, no, it's my body, I'll do what I want to it. And that's when Jinbei just like, that's how Ace died. And he died because he did what he wanted with his body. And Luffy's like, no, you keep talking like that, I'm going to beat you up. And Jinbei's like, yeah, you can, if that's what it takes for you to calm down, go ahead. I'm injured as well, but I'm not going to lose to the likes of you right now. And Luffy attempts it, and nah, Jinbei.
Yeah, no, just slams him down.
Just sits next to him. And he gets that flashback. It's like to Ace talking with Jinbei and saying, when I was pursuing Teach, I met my brother in Alabasta for the first time in 3 years. One look at him and I felt relieved. Do you know why? And that's when Luffy interrupts by biting Jinbei.
Yeah. Jinbei just like, he like pins him to a rock.
It's just like, are you blind to everything now? Where's your confidence that you can overcome anything? What happened to that strength you never doubted? You've now met countless ruthless enemies who can easily crush you in what you believe in. You even lost your brother who was your guide on these seas. A giant wall stands between you, your eyes, and the world. You can't see the way forward right now. Regret and guilt are consuming you. It may be painful for you now, Luffy, but fight it. Don't dwell on what you've lost. Try to remember what you still have. And that's such a good speech.
It is. Which, again, I love that it is Jinbei who gives him the speech. That is like Jinbei really has gone from just like this kind of mysterious character to like full on ally to like dad.
Yeah, we got like, bro here.
Yeah, he's become full on mentor, and I just this is the moment where I just Jinbei is just, he's so good, man. I love this character so much.
They saved the best warlord for the last.
Yeah, and then of course we have Jinbei telling him, try to remember what you still have, and then like he lets Luffy go. He drops to the ground and he just like starts slowly counting on his fingers one by one. And then you get that full page spread where Luffy's just in tears and he says, I have my crew. And that is
so hard not to get choked up at.
It is. No, this is again one of the best spreads in the entire series. It hits. Yeah. After all of this, after almost 100 chapters that they've been separated, at this moment where Luffy has lost everything, he's lost Sabo, he's lost Ace, he's lost his crew, he's lost everything, and that it is Jinbei who is just like, you still remember what you still have. And so here, now after all of this, it just he says each of their names, gets a smile out of Jinbei. It's like, we promised to meet up someplace. I have to go there. And that's when he finishes the flashback with Ace. It's like, you know what I saw there? A kid brother like you makes a big brother work. That's what he was saying. Like, in Alabasta, yeah.
In Alabasta, a kid brother like you makes a big brother worry. I bet he gives you guys plenty of grief, so take care of him, okay? He's not the same Luffy who couldn't do anything but follow me around. Now he has a crew of his own that he can depend on, so he'll be okay no matter what happens. And I feel relieved.
Oh!
It ends with Luffy just declaring, I want to see my crew.
Yep.
And do you want to say the thing that you mentioned to me last night about Ace?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because it's we don't see it clearly here, but I think it's the closest we'll get a chance to because he's just older. I don't know if we'll remember it for next time.
Yeah, which is what I'm worried about is that I'll forget. So you're talking about the tattoo, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think we ever pointed this out, but it's always been kind of a fun quirk of Ace's character design because he has that tattoo on his arm where it's Ace, but there's an S crossed out, so it looks like a typo, right? That who was ever doing the tattoo couldn't spell Ace right, so he crossed out the S, then the A S crossed out CE. But it turns out that the S with the cross through it is actually a nod to Sabo, because if you saw his his pirate ship. Like his Jolly Roger was the S with the crossbones. So that is actually his way of like memorializing Sabo.
I didn't notice that at all, and that blew my mind.
Right? Yeah.
That means Sabo existed all the way back then.
Yeah, that Oda had some kind of plan for him, at least all the way back then. Or maybe it was just a fun design quirk that he figured out later what to do with it. But either way, it is one of those things that's just like, damn.
Really. We do have an SBS, and it's all a bunch of birthdays again, although it's very interesting here that he actually removed the suggestion for Drake and Beige because they were too much of a stretch.
Yeah. So he does actually reject some of these.
Yeah, he has standards. Good for him.
Yeah, because throughout all of these, he's just been like, okay.
Sure, why not? That was probably the most interesting thing there, but hell of a flashback, and I believe next time we'll be done with the post-Marineford arc, right?
Almost.
Okay. I honestly can't remember what's left.
Yeah. So I think what is clear to me now with Luffy's final words in that last chapter of, just like, I want to see my crew. I feel like we have to start picking up the pieces, right? Like,
yeah, it's finally time to start doing that, where Luffy can recover and finally start finding all of his crewmates.
Yeah. How that will take shape, of course, remains to be seen. But and they're all over the world right now, so it really is just like, what do we do now? Like that's kind of the really fascinating thing is like, what happens next? That like we don't even really know how we're gonna get the crew back together. How do we move on now that Luffy again went on this long quest to save his brother that ended ultimately in failure? So it's like, yeah, how do we pick up the pieces from here?
So with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 586 to 590 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I am at Brandon Bovia on Twitter, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job. And I'm really excited for I feel like the road ahead is unsure for One Piece. Talking about not yes, the current manga, but I meant specifically that where we're at in the podcast right now. I think we're in a really exciting time, so I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 591 to 595 of One Piece.
Wow.
So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.